Joining us now for an exclusive interview, the UN ambassador, U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, I should say, Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield. Ambassador, thank you very much.
Hi, Andrea.
Well, you know, it's great to see you, but this is a consequential day because there was a shift in the American position. It was deliberate. It was carefully worded. Russia and China blocked it. There were 11 votes in favor of it, but of course they have the vetoes. Tell us your reaction to this.
You know, we were disappointed, Andrea. We felt that we put a strong resolution on the table, and it was a resolution that really stretched beyond what we have done previously. We had 11 countries support that resolution. That resolution called for an immediate ceasefire with the release of the hostages and the provision of additional humanitarian assistance to address the needs, the dire needs of the Palestinian people. There was no reason for Russia or China to veto that resolution. So again, I'm feeling extraordinarily disappointed that once again the Council failed to act.
What do you think their motivation was? Was it an attempt to embarrass the U.S. as you were frankly trying to, you know, your situation was changing? Obviously, there's a lot on this at stake with Prime Minister Netanyahu, with Rafah, with the aid not getting in. Was this an attempt to put more pressure on Israel after, you know, taking some risks and a lot of political criticism for standing with Israel in 3 previous resolutions?
Look, the president has been very clear in our support for Israel's right to self-defense, but also very clear in his message to President Netanyahu that he has to take into account how his actions will impact civilians on the ground in Rafah. So we saw this resolution as providing an opening for a ceasefire that supports the current negotiations that are taking place on the ground, provides a path to get additional humanitarian assistance in, and certainly supports the immediate release of hostages who are also living under extraordinarily difficult circumstances in the hands of Hamas. There was no reason to veto this resolution, and the Russians and the Chinese knew there was no reason to veto the resolution. It was political from my perspective not to allow a resolution that was penned by the U.S. to get through the Security Council.
In your reading of the resolution, because I found it a little bit ambiguous, would the ceasefire under this resolution be called for whether or not the hostages were at the same time released?
Look, Andrea, what I've said to my colleagues here in the Security Council, no ceasefire ever comes about because we call for a ceasefire. Ceasefires happen at the negotiating table. Anytime, anywhere in the world, ceasefires take place based on negotiations, and those negotiations are happening right now in Doha. They're still at the table, they're still working hard, and we're the ones that are there on the ground really doing the hard work. Russia is not there. China is not there. They're not providing any options for finding a solution to get us there. They're not providing humanitarian assistance. We're still the largest contributor of humanitarian assistance, and we have people on the ground working every day to ensure that assistance get to the people in need. This resolution was not ambiguous. This resolution was clear. It called for a ceasefire. We want to see, as part of that, all hostages released. We want to see humanitarian assistance be provided to the suffering Palestinian people. It was that simple, and they could have supported this resolution, and we would not be where we are today, again, with the Security Council failing to speak in one voice.
And Secretary Blinken had what was described to me by a senior official as a frank and direct meeting a typical meeting lately with Netanyahu. Netanyahu came out immediately afterward and flatly rejected the Secretary's appeals to not go into Rafah and to do more to get aid in and to support, a ceasefire, a pause, to get more aid in. So where does this go from now? What if he persists, despite sending his military here, so it won't happen next week, but persists in going in on the ground in Rafah when there is so little aid and you've got up to 1.4 million people there?
Well, for the moment, he has not gone into Rafah, and we will continue to press the Israelis not to make that decision, because we know that that decision will be an extraordinarily difficult one for any of us to accept. And that's the message that we continue to give to the Israelis. The president gave that message to President Netanyahu. He's speaking to his public, but we have to continue to press him not to take an action that we think will not be in the interests of Israel, and not in the interest, certainly, of the people on the ground. 1.5 million people are sitting in that small location. It would be impossible to move those people. So we have to work to continue to help the Israelis. We want to help them defeat Hamas. It is important that Hamas, a terrorist organization, be defeated. But we also have to ensure that innocent Palestinians who are caught in the crossfire, who are being used as human shields by Hamas, are not continually harmed.
Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield, thank you very much for being with us today. Appreciate it.